So if I might ask somebody else up here to repeat what you're saying, I'll try to understand the best I can, okay?
Would you like to explain suicide?
Suicides? Okay. That's one of the questions that I always stay away from unless somebody really wants to know. Okay. The only thing wrong with suicide is because you break a contract. You come in with your plan. You come in with something you intend to do. By committing suicide, you break the contract and disrupt other people's lives. But you are not condemned. You know, the church is always saying that you go to purgatory, and they won't even bury them in hallowed ground. No, it hasn't got anything to do with that. I always say if they would just wait one more day, sometimes things are different. But they think they've taken on more than they can handle. That's what I said earlier. They tell them, don't try to do it all at one time. You can't. Do it as you can do it. Do all you're expected. You're not expected to do it all. You take on too much. It's usually someone who has taken on too much in their life. There's something that they can't handle, and they think this is the only way out. When they cross to the other side, they are met with great love. There's no condemning, there is no judging. The angels and the guides that meet them know what they went through, and they'll say, well, you had too much on your plate. But they're met with great love, they're not condemned. But we're told you're going to have to go back and do it again. There's no way out. They have to come back and repeat it again. But there is no punishment, condemning. But that's all it is. They just made a mistake, so they have to do it over again.
Does that include people who write notes and tidy everything up? They know they're going to go. So does that include those people, or do those people, are they aware that it's time for them to go for other people to learn a lesson?
Can you hear the questions? Okay, I don't know how much. No, that's a different thing, because those are people, maybe they're getting intuitions and feelings that they know this is it, they're going to be leaving. They're not doing anything to hurry it up. But I asked them about, what about euthanasia? When people are old and they're sick and they don't want to be here anymore. Well, the worst thing you can do is hook people up to machines, because their soul is really out and you're keeping part of it attached. And this, I know my daughter in intensive care said the people come in, the family, and they said, but they're still alive, they're breathing. The machine is doing it. It's not them that are doing the breathing, they're not alive. And they're really worn out. It's time for them to go, and we're holding them here. So they said, it's the wrong thing to do to hook them up to machines and to force them to stay alive. Like I said earlier, that one doctor, he said he just took his time getting to the room, especially with older people, and he would tell the family, let grandma go, she wants to go, you know. But no, that wouldn't be suicide if they're just, they have a feeling something's going to happen and they're, you said, tidying up and getting ready. It's on another level, they know something is going to happen. But you're never condemned for anything. It's always a reason, which I guess could bring up murder, if you want me to go into that. I try not to go too much in this. Okay. They said murder is an example of what not to do. If you didn't have anything to show you what is not socially acceptable, you wouldn't have any examples. You have the murder, okay. Now, next time around, what happens with murder and victim? What's the best way to solve that when you come back again? Because a lot of people say, you kill me, so I'll kill you. That just keeps the wheel of karma going. They said the best way to solve it with murderer and victim is what they call the soft way. Suppose the murderer had to come back and take care of his victim the rest of his life. That's what's called the soft way. He couldn't have a life of his own. He had to devote his life taking care of a retarded child, taking care of a handicapped. See what I meant a while ago about the handicapped children and bodies? That the person had to devote their life to taking care of that child or that person. They couldn't have a life of their own. Maybe they have to take care of their mother. Their mother is living with them and they can't live their own life. Maybe these are murderer and victims. You see what I mean? They said this is the soft way to do it. About a month or so ago, I saw something on Dr. Phil that brought this home to me so clearly. It was this one where the mother and father had the triplets. You saw that, the triplets? The three girls that were about, 4 or 5 years old. They were blind and deaf. Kind of like Helen Keller was, but these were blind and deaf, 3 of them. And they were 4 or 5 years old, and the father kept saying, they don't even know I'm there. He said, it's a horrible situation trying to take care of these children. And it was like he was wanting to get out. And you know, the men are always the ones that want to get out, and then the wife is the one that's left, the mother's left taking care of all of this. But the interesting thing about it, they were showing the videos of how miserable their life was, and the children didn't even know they were there because they had no communication with them. So he made an interesting remark. He said, I have no life of my own. It's like I have to devote my life to these children, and I don't have any life of my own. I can't work, I can't do anything. And that hit home. So what do you think that was? These were 3 of his victims. And because time is speeding up, things are changing. Things are are going faster. Now we had 3 of them come in instead of 1 at a time. It makes sense, but it was karma there. That's one way that the murderers and victims can repay each other. They have a logic we could never understand. I'm glad we don't have to be the one to make the decisions. They have, I think they got a computer up there that does it, or they figure it all out, but we couldn't figure those things out. But if you look at each individual case differently, you'd be surprised what you find. I had I'm going to get over here in a minute. I had a friend who had a child who was a vegetable. He couldn't do anything. She had to do everything for him. He just laid in the bed. And he'd got to where she'd been taking care of him all of his life till he was 18 years old. And she said it was getting to the point where was hurting her back. She had to lift him and move him. At 18, it was like she couldn't take care of him any longer. But she would always say, isn't he beautiful? He is so smart. He is so intelligent. Even though he couldn't talk, he couldn't move. Well, she finally come to the point she had to have him put in an institution because she couldn't do it anymore. He lived 2 months in the institution and died. See what it was? There was a contract between her and the boy. Once that was over, the contract was finished. Just like it says in the Bible, well done, my good and faithful servant. And it was broken by that time. But see, there's a lot of things we don't see. Okay, one way back here.
Dolores, you said you were going to explain who they were that you get the information from.
That what?
That you get your information, who they are.
I did in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
That I get the information from the cases that I work with in my hypnosis. This is where I get all the information that I write about in all of my books. Because I've done thousands and thousands of people, and they all tell me the same things. But I have people who come in to see me who tell me, when I leave here, I'm going to commit suicide. You're my last hope. talk about no pressure on the therapist, you know. And that's when usually I take them back and I find out they've had maybe a whole series of lifetimes where they had committed suicide. And they were coming back again and again and again, and they didn't get out of it. And so this one man was laying there crying, and he said, I'm doing the same thing all over again. And that was enough to make it sink in. But that's the only thing you have to think about, is they will come back and do it again, so what's the point? A lot of people say, well, I don't remember when I'm here anyway. Okay, we got time for a few more questions.
Can you say why time is speeding up?
I'll talk about that on Sunday. Okay. We want to know why time is speeding up. My lecture on Sunday has to do with the convoluted universe and the new earth, the development of the new earth. And then I'll get into how time, everything is changing, and what we're moving into. And we're all in the middle of it right now. It's a big adventure. It's happening right now. But I want to keep these two topics separated right now. Okay, I'll get you, and then I'll get the one back there.
So
Okay.
can you draw to you certain souls?
Do what?
Can you draw to you certain souls? Like when you, like I just have a sensing at times. I've got quite a few kids, and I just knew when each of them wanted to come in. I just had this overwhelming tap tap. I want to come in.
Well, see, that's what I said. The soul picks you.
So they hassle around you, and they sort of.
No. They'll say, okay, probably past life connections or whatever. You'll say, all right, this is where I want to be. Either you come back with the same people again and again and again. This is what I do in my work. We go over relationships with families and however there is, because there's more karma involving husbands, wives, and children than any other relationship. But you come in with the same group of people, either because you want to be with them, you like to be with them, and you work well together, you've worked well in other lives, or because there's karma. And you've got to pay back the karma, so you make this contract, okay, I'll come back and do it. So, yeah, it's all planned.
I like my karma.
So, as far as drawing the soul, it's the same thing. They pick you. You know,
picked me, or I
they picked you. And I've had it happen sometimes when, if a baby or a child dies, they'll come right back in the same family.
Yeah.
That happens too. They'd say, well, okay, I guess I've got to go in there and I've got to finish it. And they come back with the same one. Okay, am I way in the back over there? Yeah?
At the beginning, you said that a lot of our problems, blockages, pain, etc., that we're experiencing in this lifetime really come from another lifetime.
What part? I got the first part. What comes from another lifetime?
Problems in this lifetime come from other
Yes.
lifetimes.
That's what I do with my therapy.
Is that what you recommend people that experience that way to resolve all this?
Because I've had people come to me that say they've been going to a psychiatrist for 7 years, have not found the source of their problem, because they said all we're doing is repeating the same thing over and over again and not finding the cause. Well, that's because the psychiatrist is only looking at this life. He doesn't even realize it could be coming from somewhere else. So that's what I do. I take them back to the appropriate lifetime, because you've had hundreds and hundreds of lives, you're going to get something. I take them to the appropriate one to explain what's happening in this lifetime. And that's when we find the connection and we can work it all out. But that's what past life therapy is, going back to the other lifetimes and working the whole thing out. Okay. We got an airplane, okay, yeah?
Is it right to sort of think about health and certainly as healing as something that is the right path forward? Because what I'm thinking is surely sometimes people have to die of a tumour because that's their choice to do so. And
I got part of that. The airplane was blocking out part of it.
Health and healing a path to be desired, or is it appropriate to die of a tumour or
Is it
something?
appropriate for healers to take that away?
Oh, well, my work, you can take it away instantly.
But is it appropriate always to do that? Surely there's a choice for that.
Well, like I said, you have an exit plan. If you decide you want to die that way, if you figured you would learn a lesson from dying from a tumor or whatever. But the ideal state should be perfect health. And you can take it away, because that's what I've found. Most of cancer is caused from suppressed anger, especially in the intestinal areas. Suppressed anger, holding it in, not being able to talk about it, not being able to release it. It sits in there and begins to churn around because you won't let it out. You don't talk to anybody. And after a while, it begins to eat away at the body and creates cancer. But if we can find out what it is, we can take it away if it's appropriate. Maybe in some cases it's not appropriate.
So do we know that though? Do we have the knowledge, like the skill or the wisdom to know when we should and when we shouldn't?
This is what we're trying to get people to understand. You do it to yourself. Why do you do it? When you find out, then you can take it away. That's what this whole new time we're in right now is learning. Getting this knowledge back. That you don't have to be sick. You can heal your body. And once you understand that, see how simple it's going to be. But that's part of what my work is, to get more people to know this. That you don't have to be sick. You find out, why did I do that? And people come into me when I'm have sessions with them about, tell me different parts of their body are hurting and where they're having the problems. You can tell instantly what's going on in their life now, because the part of their body reflects what's happening in their life. So that's what part of this therapy is all about, getting to know the person and take it away. Because there's now you want to progress. You don't want to die and have to come back and do it again, the same thing over and over again. Does that make sense?
Do you have any opportunities of working within the prison system to aid any prisoners?
No, I haven't.
Very disturbed.
People ask me, what about criminals? I've not worked with them. I think mostly because they don't understand this. The only way I've worked with them is, we get lots and lots of mail from prisoners. And when they do that, I always send them books free. I have damaged books, and I'm always sending them books free. And a lot of them have written me, and they are so grateful for the books. But I had one young man who wrote me. He was only in his 20s, and he was in there for life, for murder. And he writes me this letter, and he says, I cannot take this anymore. I want out of this. And he said, I want to commit suicide. And he said, I just want to know what's going to happen to me if I do. And I don't want a bunch of religious crap. I want to know what's going to happen to me if I do, because I can't take it anymore. So rather than write him a long letter, I did answer the letter, and I sent him this book, Between Death and Life. And it was so funny. A few months later, I get a letter from another prisoner in the same prison who was a friend of his. And he writes me, he says, you don't know what you did for him. He said, he was the man I sent the things to. I mean, you imagine being in your 20s and you're going to be in prison for the rest of your life? He didn't say I didn't do it or I should be let out. He knew it, but he just said, I can't take it. But anyway, he said the young man, he come running down the hall, waving the letter. He said, she answered me, she answered me. And this made me cry when I read the letter, but he said, what happened, this young man set up like a library system. And I kept sending him books, and he was giving the books out to all the other prisoners, and he was a librarian. And he began having discussion groups to where they were all discussing these ideas and metaphysical ideas, and it helped him. I guess it gave him something to focus on, something to live for besides what he was doing. So in that way, I guess I helped him. And I have other ones that say, this turned my life around. I'm never going to get out, but at least they do set up discussion groups. And so I think it's helping in that way anyway. You never know, what you're going to do or say to help somebody. But I have never worked with the prisoners, though. Okay. Okay. One here and then back here. Okay, got several hands. Okay.
When you do regressional work with a client, how many past lives would you take them into if they were all traumatic? I've heard, not saying that you do this necessarily, but I've heard of some psychotherapists who do regressional work taking them maybe into 18 lives,
No.
one after another, and they're very traumatized.
No. Takes one session. That's all I have with the person is one session. As I said, you've had hundreds and hundreds of lives. You go back to the appropriate past life. At the most, you may have 2. If it's a short life, they may go to another one. But that's it. And all of the answer is there. And then when I get into this part of the mind that I told you that I work with, it explains everything, and it will explain the whole thing. There's no sense in going through all this trauma.
It would re-traumatize them again, wouldn't it? Unless
That's not therapy.
no.
No, that's not therapy. You want to help them. You don't want to re-traumatize them. So when I do it, we go to the important life that applies, because they say, if you go to a past life therapist, a hypnotist, and they'll say, well, yeah, it was interesting. I was in ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, but what does that have to do with me now? It was not tied together. It was not all put into a package. And that's what I do, and you can do it in one session. So it doesn't take all of that. You don't have, I will not let them go through and be traumatized. I take care of the people I work with. Okay.
One of my skills is I am a hypnotist, but I missed your training. Is it possible to get the notes or the CDs, or would you recommend one particular book to get some other ideas?
And I don't write about it in my books because it's like anything is dangerous in the wrong hands if you don't know what you're doing. So when I do the class, I go step by step, go through the whole process. I will be doing the class in Sydney. That's quite a ways away from here, though. And that's next weekend. Otherwise, I don't write about it because I just don't want people say they read my books and they say, I know what you do from reading your books. I don't put it in there, but they take a little piece here, a little piece there. But I think it's better if they understand the process. And I don't know when I'm coming back. It's been 5 years since I've been here the last time. Unless you can come to Sydney next weekend. I'm doing some in the States and things like that, but otherwise I don't know of any other way you can do it,
I'll email you, maybe find out the States.
Do what?
I'll email you from your card and find out about the States.
I have lots of classes in the States. I'm going to have one in Los Angeles in February. It depends on where you want to go. Sydney's closer than Los Angeles. Okay, anyway. You can see how I'm very protective. I want to make sure people learn what I'm telling them. I don't want it to be abused. So that's why I want you to take step by step in the class. Okay.
I just want to know how you know which life to go back to. If you say you only go back to one life, how do you find out which life that is?
Your daughter took my class, and she'll know how to do it.
Oh well.
Okay. Because this part of the mind I say that I work with, I let it pick the life. I don't. And the person doesn't have any idea. I let that part decide which is the appropriate lifetime to go back to. And I let it choose. And that's what we do. Okay. And I had some over there too, I think. And I think it's getting down to time.
It is.
Yeah.
For the lady who wants to know why hypnotherapists don't go into prisons is because the authorities won't allow them to. The medical profession will only have psychiatrists.
And the psychiatrists work at them from a different direction.
And that's why.
Uh-huh.
But the
Yeah.
hypnotherapists are not allowed.
But, so I guess the best I'm doing anyway, the best I can do is have my books in there. The chaplains in the prison always asked me to send books for the libraries. So that's true.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been allowed in there anyway. Okay, I think we're down to time. We had one more way back in the back here, and that's going to be the last one. They have to get ready for the next speaker.
What sort of karma are we creating by our deliberate abuse of animals?
You what?
What sort of karma are we creating by our deliberate misuse of animals?
Of animals? None. Now, if you treat an animal badly, now that's different. You mistreat an animal. But the killing of an animal for food is not, there's no karma with that.
I said deliberate abuse.
If you deliberately abuse an animal, then you are creating karma because you're hurting another living thing. But they said the animal also has a choice. So if it decides, okay, I'm going to come back and I'll be somebody's dinner, then that is nothing wrong with that. But it's always wrong to abuse anything. So if you mean deliberately hurting an animal to see it suffer, that is wrong. But that can take many different forms too. Laboratories experiment on them like that too, so it's hard to say. But it's part of your own karma. You treat everything in nature the way you would want to be treated. Because we are abusing the environment and everything. But just because, see, I work a lot with the ashrams and the swamis all over the world, and I respect their beliefs, and if they want to be vegetarian, that's okay. But I've not found anything wrong with eating the meat, but except in my work they say it's better if we stay away from heavy meat right now and focus on fresh fruits and vegetables. But you know, everything can have its pros and its cons and its backs and forths anyway. Okay, I think we run out of time, and you've been a good audience. Thank you. And we have some of my books here, and I'm going to be downstairs and doing book signing after a while too.
And if you want to be on Dolores' mailing list, there is a form out at the front there.
And she said if you want to be on my mailing list, I have a notebook there you can sign, and I'll notify you about anything that's going on.
What's your stand downstairs? What number?
On what?
What number is your stand downstairs?
It's not a stand, it's the Conscious Living booth where they have the magazines.
Magazines, yep.
That's where they're going to have the books. Thanks. And I'll be down there doing the signing.
Thank you so much.
Would you object to one of the hypnotists from my association explaining your notes?